A man came into town today, a very strange man. He looked to be in his 30s, walking with a hunchback with a load of items upon it. He had bit thinning red hair and tannish skin, as well as almost skeleton-like frame. He was quite small, really. It was the big grin on his face that got to me. It was such a large smile, almost inhumanly big. Its edges seemed to stretch beyond its cheekbone and into his eyes. He strolled down the town with that joyful expression on his face, speaking with the most whispers to children who are lined along the road. The children would stare, motionless as he whispered to them. I couldn't make out what he was saying from the distance, so I sat in the centerpieces in town square, waiting for him to cross my path. I was generally terrified, to be honest, but I didn't know why yet. Even still, I wanted to wait for him. I couldn't explain this curiously, but I had a hold on me that it would not be released until I spoke with the eerie man. He slowly began approaching me. A soft thudding in his footsteps was barely audible over the dull roar in the square. Yet, all at the same time, I could hear it plainly anything else, as I waited for a slight panic for him to reach me. He stopped in front of me, still not facing me. I looked up to catch his face. He stared forward and then slowly turned towards me. He never opened his eyes, and never smiled and never disappeared from his face. Turning his head to me, he opened one eye and stared directly at me with it. I slumped down in incredible fear that had never felt it hit me like a wave. He didn't say a word. He only stared into my eyes with the hawk eye I had opened. I completely lost track of reality. The sounds of the town square around me faded away, and I became mesmerized with the eerie silence that seemed deafening. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. Nothing would move. My body seemed frozen in bricks I was standing on. The smile felt like it was looking at me, almost like there was a true man behind it. Not in the eyes, I can't explain it, but to put it the best I can, the smile seemed ageless, eternal. It echoed into my mind into infinity. My body began leaning away from him. Slowly his head turned back to face the road, and he began to go on his way again. I was shaking violently. I felt like I could throw up. As he walked off, I realized that there were masks on his back, and he must have been a mask collector of sorts. That night I couldn't sleep. All I could think about was meeting him in the square. He didn't say anything, but I felt as if he completely disemboweled me with his glance. His piercing eye, I didn't know what it was, but that man was not human. No, he was something else, something very sinister, an ageless feeling that wouldn't go away either, as if he was some sort of ancient demon, wandering the earth from city to city, town to town. Why, though? I just wanted to know more. I was becoming obsessed with the very thing that terrified me more than anything else. Tomorrow I would search for him and see if he was in town. I honestly hoped he hadn't left yet, and yet if he hadn't, I can learn more about him. The next day I ate breakfast and went to the town square. I saw a small group of people gathered around in a small vacant building in the corner. I ran over to see him, the demon standing out in front of everyone. He had his hands together and was speaking of how he was opening his Happy Masks shop in the square. He preached and preached, "Come on, come all." The crowd, they all seemed mesmerized by his words. Finally, he finished and headed inside the tiny building. A small sign right next to it read, "Happy Mask Shop. Happiness is just a mask away." I stuttered. What was so scary about this man? I had to know more. So I ran inside, and there was already a few people in there. Yet it was silent. No one was talking. What was going on? Were they negotiating something? I saw a man, a child next to him, and a woman behind him. Yet none of them were saying anything. They were only staring at the Happy Mask man. He nodded his head, as if they had reached some silent agreement, and handed over 2 masks to the man and child. They turned and walked out. As they passed, I saw a glazed look in their eyes, as if they were completely out of it. The woman was out with just behind them, carrying another mask. Then it was me. I was all alone with him. He cocked his head, maintaining his silence. He wanted to speak, so I did, asking him about his shop, as well as where he came from. Silence. He didn't say anything. He just kept grinning. I was beginning to become irritated, yet simultaneously more frightened too. I stepped back towards the door, asking him to answer me. Just then a child walked in. It was a boy, no older than 5 years old. He walked up to the happy masked man. The man stood over there, hunched over to the boy. The boy held out his hands, expecting a mask perhaps? The happy masked man opened his eyes. Both of them stared at the most evil glare I had ever seen that child. I stepped back again, almost tripping as I reached for the doorknob. To my sheer terror, the man grabbed the boy by the neck and picked him up off the ground. I could hear horrific screeches of terror coming from the boy's throat. That was the last 8 feet off the ground. Just then, the salesman's mouth began opening, still smiling, of course. It grew wider and wider until it was at least a foot wide. I could hear his jaw snapping as it opened. Horrible inhuman sounds began coming from him as he raised the child higher. Then all of a sudden the child was halfway down the salesman's throat. I screamed as I could see the boy's legs kicking in the salesman's mouth. Slowly but surely they slid down and disappeared. The boy was gone. I began crying hysterically, yet I couldn't move. He turned to me, his mouth still hanging open, then wide. He put his hands to his face and the loud, strange glow began to appear around his hands. Slowly he peeled his hands away from his face. A repulsive, stretching sound cloud could be heard as the skin appeared to be pulling off. He arched his back further and farther until his hands were separated from his face by a clump of flesh at least 2 feet long. This thing was an absolute monster. The flesh torn off, leaving the same grinning face. He stood there, the mass of his hands. Slowly the skin began molding and contorting. I backed into the corner. What the hell was going on? Before I knew it, the skin had turned into a small shape in his hands. He held his hands out, showing me his new prize. It was the child's face. He had made a mask out of flesh. The horror hit me and I began vomiting onto my lap. I heard a small chuckle coming from the salesman. No, I had to get out of here. I got up and ran for the door. Upon grabbing the doorknob, I heard one more thing. Do you want a mask, my boy? Tears were streaming down my cheeks as I was sobbing and running across the town square. I could hear people gasping and shrieking as I ran by. I'm sure I was a poor sight, a child covered in blood and vomit. I didn't care though. That thing was there, it was a demon. I ran to my house and ran straight to my room. Both of my parents were out. I sat there what felt like hours, rocking back and forth, covered in filth. Finally I had gotten up and looked at the window. The small building was still out there, but no one was going in it. The sign said was gone. To this day, I have no idea what happened or what I experienced. I never told anyone because no one will believe me. I washed myself and will try to continue my life as normal that day. The happy masked salesman was gone. I even asked around town and people claimed I had no idea what I was talking about or they weren't sure. Dead ends were everywhere. It had been a dream? No. I would not make up something about like that, and I pity all those who experience him in the future. That monster, that thing, may the gods protect all who came to this path. It's been a few years now. A lot has happened since then, but he has never come back, and I dread the day more than anything when he may. If he does, I'll be sure to stay clear. If you see a man in your hometown claiming to sell masks, a man who looks off and seems to be hiding something sinister, stay away from him. He isn't human. Whatever he is, know it is the very essence of evil itself.
What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel known as Ms. Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, Stay pretty.